Welcome back, folks, to WrestleRant. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and right here on WrestleRant, we break down all the pay-per-views that I watch on the WWE Network. And for the next number of editions of WrestleRant, we will be breaking down every King of the Ring installment in the pay-per-views history as seen on the WWE Network. And today we're talking King of the Ring 1994. So the 93 show is a bit hard to top because it had a lot of monumental, memorable moments. Hulk Hogan's final WWE match, Bret Hart becoming the 1993 King of the Ring, having a phenomenal match with Mr. Perfect in the semifinals. You had Yokozuna becoming the new WWE champion. So it was a pretty historical night in 1993. Let's see if 94 tops it. Kicking out the show, a quarterfinal match in the 1994 King of the Ring tournament. Razor Ramon taking on Bam Bam Bigelow. All right match. It was cool. I mean, Razor Ramon was the fan favorite to win here, so it was cool to see him, of the babyface side anyway. To have him open up the tournament was a bit fitting, taking on the man who made it to the finals the year prior. So they had a good little match, not a great match. For the time they were given, they made the most of it, had a decent match. Razor Ramon came out on top and advanced the semifinals. After that, we had IRS taking on Mabel, who won the following year's tournament, so it was pretty funny that he was taken up pretty early on. But this was when he was doing the whole men on a mission shit, and it was awful, and IRS wasn't that much better, so the match wasn't good whatsoever. Not a good match. IRS wins. Owen Hart taking on Tatanka. All right match. I mean, Owen Hart, a lot like Eddie Guerrero and a few others that I mentioned here in the past, managed to take anything that he was involved in and turn it to gold. When he was working with an equally excellent worker in Bret Hart, he had phenomenal matches. But when he was working with guys that weren't as good in the ring, he still had some pretty decent matches. He carried them to a pretty competent contest. That was the case with Tatanka here. All right match. Owen Hart in the end goes over as he should have to advance in the finals, to the semifinals rather. After that, in the quarterfinal match of the night, 1-2-3 Kid taking on Jeff Jarrett. Pretty good match. I mean, it probably would have meant more. It was a big win for 1-2-3 Kid, obviously. But I think it would have meant more if the match was given more time. It was only 5 minutes. A lot of these matches were cut short by a lot, which isn't too surprising because they did pretty much the entire tournament on this show. I mean, obviously they had qualifying matches and whatnot. But I feel like, as they would do in later years, it would be a lot more beneficial if they just had the semifinals and the finals of the tournament, as opposed to cramming it in there with the tag title match and some random-ass main event and the WWE title match and everything else. But still, though, an all-right match and a nice surprise little victory afterwards for 1-2-3 Kid. Or rather, afterwards, Jeff Jarrett attacked him and put him at a disadvantage going into these semifinals. After that, for the WWE Championship, why this wasn't the main event, I have no idea. I mean, I guess I have a pretty good idea why it wasn't. I'll talk about that later. But this belonged in the main event slot. For the WWE Championship, Bret Hart defending against Diesel in a phenomenal match. Again, that's really hard to say when it comes to Diesel, a guy that's not known for being an amazing wrestler. But I feel like when he's in there with the right guy, he can have a good match. But that wasn't really the case in his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania the next year, in 95, at WrestleMania 11. They didn't really have that memorable of a match. It was good compared to the rest of the card, but it wasn't that great of a match, in the long scheme, in the overall, in the long haul, you know what I mean? So this was a great match, a lot of chaos. They worked really well together, a lot of great storytelling too with Bret Hart targeting Diesel throughout and vice versa. So these guys had really good psychology and chemistry with one another, and it made for a really, really good match. Got awesome time in over 20 minutes. Like I said, very chaotic, very unpredictable. And in the end, Jim Neidhart would come down and attack Diesel to grant him the disqualification victory, but help Bret Hart retain the WWE Championship. Shawn Michaels came down, and it was all an all-out brawl with the Harts and Michaels and Diesel and Bret Hart and whoever else. It was all, an all-out brawl, Pure Six brawl, as Gorilla Monsoon would say, or maybe it was, maybe not Gorilla Monsoon, but you know what I'm talking about, the classic phrase, Pure Six brawl. That's exactly what this was. All these guys just going all out here and just decimating each other. I'll talk about Art Donovan on commentary at the end of the show, by the way, too. But as far as this match goes, great match. They would have later matches at the Royal Rumble, and I believe SummerSlam 95 too, I want to say. Another pay-per-view in 95. Maybe it's Survivor Series? I don't know. They had another two more matches, and then Bret Hart won the following one, or they always ended in chaos and whatever the hell else. But anyway, this was a great match. Really, really good stuff. Like I said, I was kind of disappointed that wasn't the main event. So after that, the semifinals of the tournament, Razor Ramon quickly squashing IRS. He got barely any offense whatsoever. Just basically squashing IRS. Owen Hart taking on the 1-2-3 Kid in a great match that only got 3 minutes. Again, that really should have gotten a lot longer than it did. They cut out the quarterfinal matches. Maybe it would have been better than it was, but anyway, really, or would have been, gotten the time it deserved, because the match itself was great, especially for 3 minutes. They worked really well together. They would have other matches down the line, but for a semifinal match, this was really good. My only disappointment, my only gripe with it was that it wasn't longer. And then we get to the WWF Tag Team title match, the Head Shrinkers taking on Crush and Yokozuna. They were defending the titles against Crush and Yokozuna. A mess of a match. These guys, unlike Diesel and Bret Hart, the exact opposite, had zero chemistry with each other. It was all out chaotic and just a total mess. And not in a good way either, like with the Diesel Bret Hart match. Just very sloppy, not really good psychology whatsoever. It just wasn't that good of a match at all. But the Head Shrinkers did win to retain the titles. After that, the King of the Ring finals. Razor Ramon taking on Owen Hart in a good match. Again, that should have gotten a lot longer than only 7 freaking minutes. But Razor Ramon was screwed over in the finals by one Jim Neidhart. A great swerve that made a lot of sense, too. He felt overshadowed in the whole Bret Hart-Owen Hart feud throughout 1994. That Bret Hart may have been taking him for granted, so he helped out Owen Hart in winning the King of the Ring crown here. And why would he interrupt himself and help Bret Hart retain the WWE Championship? It's because Owen Hart wanted to be Bret Hart, not Diesel, for the championship come SummerSlam. So it made perfect sense in storyline, an unpredictable swerve. I completely forgot this happened, so I was taken aback by that after seeing Jim Neidhart, side by side with Bret Hart earlier in the evening. So that was a great swerve, and the match itself was good, but I felt like the ending outcome was a lot more surprising, a lot more memorable than the actual match was. But good stuff, and Owen Hart deserved, obviously, to be the King of the Ring that year, really ripping it up with Bret Hart throughout all of 1994. And then the main event, Roddy Piper coming out of retirement for the first time in over 2.5 years, I believe, to take on Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler had called him out on a number of occasions on the King's Court, making fun of Piper's Pit. The match was not good at all. It probably would have been a lot better a decade earlier, obviously. Given the limitations, I enjoyed it just to see Piper back in the ring. The crowd was behind him, so it wasn't an instant classic whatsoever. I think it just would have been better suited earlier on in the card. I mean, I remember at the 96 show, which I just got finished watching, and hopefully that review obviously will be up in 2 more videos. Jerry Lawler took on a returning Ultimate Warrior. Not his first match back, but it was more of like an attraction match. That was not the main event, nor should it have been. A lot like this match. I know Piper's a great worker, or was, and Jerry Lawler's a really good worker too, but it was just all comedy. You had Piper's, number 1 fan, or his son, I forgot who that was, in his corner, dressed up as him. So the match wasn't good. I mean, the crowd enjoyed it, so it didn't really end the show on a sour note, but overall, the show, I would say, was memorable, definitely. A lot like the 93 show. You had Art Donovan on commentary, who was so bad it was funny. So, I mean, it was really a train wreck at the table, but like I said, he was just so awful on commentary that show that it's really become kind of a running gag, and it's more of like a thing to kind of look back on and laugh at because the guy was so freaking bad. So other than that, I would give this show, it's a middle-of-the-road show, just one too many matches. I would just scrap the quarterfinal stuff. There's really not many good matches in the quarterfinal, so I would just, if you're watching this show in its entirety, I would skip over the first probably hour of the show. But it's not all bad. I mean, the King of the Ring finals wasn't awful. It was good, but I thought the ending outcome was really cool too, so I would watch that. The tag team title match wasn't good at all, but the WWE title match was really, really good. And the one semifinal match between Owen Hart and 1-2-3 Kid was a lot of fun. The main event wasn't bad, but enjoyable for what it was. So in the show, overall, I would say the show is middle of the road. Thumbs in the middle, I would give this show. Not a great show, but a memorable show and historic in many aspects as well. A lot like its predecessor in 1993. So be sure to check it out on the WWE Network. I will be back in my next video to talk about King of the Ring 1995. And until then, you guys can follow me on the Twitter at WrestleRant, on Facebook at facebook.com/Graham.Jason.Matthews, and right here on the YouTube by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing. So until next time, guys, I'm Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.